Allegiance, so if you could please stand. And our school board vice chair, Liz McDonald, will lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So welcome. Thank you for coming out to this community forum. The focus tonight is to learn about the proposed changes to the Ed 306 rules. This is a community forum that is hosted by the Litchfield School Board. Our chair, Heidi Ames, had a family situation, was not able to be with us tonight, so Liz McDonald has stepped in to help to run the meeting. We also have board members Tina Harrison and Andrew Cutter with us this evening. And so we welcome them and thank them for their support. The administrative team is here also, and I can see quite a few teachers have joined us this evening. So community members, please, we're looking for a real open, honest dialogue and feedback. And I can assure you that folks who are here to present tonight are also looking for that honest dialogue. They want to know what is on the minds of Litchfield residents or residents in the area relative to the state of public education and the writing of the Ed 306 rules that define what public schools look like. So it's my pleasure as your superintendent, Mike Jetty, to introduce Mr. Fred Bermonti. Fred is the president of the National Center for Competency-Based Learning, and he has been tasked by the New Hampshire Department of Education of chairing and overseeing the process of revising the 306 rules. And he's been involved with this work for many years and is bringing a new version forward to receive that public comment. Fred is an innovator in New Hampshire. I've said to him before that he's the type of guy that gets an idea and you go, wow, that's a really good idea. And a year later, it's in action. He turns it into an actionable plan. And that's what I've always appreciated about Fred and the work that he's done in New Hampshire. So with no further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome Fred to Litchfield. And he's going to walk us through a presentation. And there's plenty of time for questions and answers at the end. I will ask one thing. If there's anybody who is a non-resident of Litchfield, if you would just please use that microphone there. And the reason I say that is we want to make sure that residents have their questions answered first and foremost. But we will take questions from anybody who has turned out this evening. All right? Fred, welcome, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much, Mike. Hello. Welcome. My name is Fred Bermonti. I live in Durham. I've been a resident of the state of New Hampshire for a lot of years, and moved here in 1955. So I was 8 years old at the time, and New Hampshire was a different state at the time. But I love this place, and some of you may know I had a business that I started from my college at Keene State, a business called Daddy's Junkie Music Stores. Has anybody ever heard of Daddy's? So okay, so that was my company. I was the daddy. I was the only person in New Hampshire who was known as Daddy, both at home and at work, and proud of it. But I was, my first time on the State Board of Education was 1992, and I got on the State Board of Education. I had chaired a committee that was called the Assessment Steering Committee that put together the original framework for the New Hampshire statewide test. And there was a big fight on the state board over the minimum standards for public school approval, and one of the members quit, and that's how I got on the board. So the minimum standards, let me tell you what the minimum standards is. It is the rules and regulations about how New Hampshire runs its public schools. So it kind of sets the framing of this is the way we run our schools. So details in it including class sizes, subjects taught, school year, etc. All that stuff is inside the state regulations. So it's a very important document, and I'm glad you're all here because it is important for us to know this document. Let me tell you what we can do and what we can't do. So we are, we have no vote. We have been contracted with the Department of Education to put together a draft That's what we've done. We have given them a draft that was put together by this team. This team, in my biased opinion, is an all-star team of public school supporters and competency experts. I have with me as one of the members of the team, Nate Harris is over here. Nate is a doctoral student. He's a doctoral student at UNH, getting his doctorate in education leadership, and with a focus on competency-based learning. And I'm so glad that he's here. I also have a member of the NCCBL board, Gary O'Neill. Gary was had the largest marketing firm north of Boston for many years. He had all the state contracts, tourism, lottery, etc. And Gary and I have been pals since we were kids. I was the best man at his first 2 weddings. So he thought that was the problem, but it wasn't the problem, trust me. So anyway, Nate Green was our inside the department person I worked with. Carolyn Eastman was the former assistant superintendent of schools at Oyster River, and she works for the New Hampshire Learning Initiative and is a competency-based expert. Jeff Beard is the head of CTE for the Department of Education. Barrett Christina is the head of the School Boards Association. David Ryan is superintendent of schools in Exeter. Steve Kosakowski is the executive director of the Virtual Learning Academy Charter School. Brian Steck now works for the New Hampshire Learning Initiative. He is a competency-based expert, has written a number of books on competency-based learning. Brian was the principal of Sanborn Regional High School. Val Zanchuk runs a manufacturing company outside of Keene. He was the chair of the Business and Industry Association Board. Is also chair of the New Hampshire Learning Initiative Board. And Val, and he's been coming out with us to these, he's not here tonight, but I will tell you, Val is the only member of our team so far who has shed blood for this effort. So we were at Keene Middle School, and after the session was over, the superintendent was walking us out the back way, and so we get outside. It's dark. It's like 8:30, and Val was a step in front of me, and a step in front of Nate, and what all 3 of us thought was a staircase was a loading dock. Ouch is right. So Val took a step and disappeared. And it was like, oh no. So fortunately, he got right back up again. I swear they would have had an ambulance taking me away if it were me. But so Val survived, he scraped his knee. But that's the kind of dedication that we have on our team. Dr. Mary Ford she's the former Dean of Education at Southern New Hampshire University and former head of special education for the state of New Hampshire. Jackie Gillette was the chair, she was the superintendent of schools for Claremont during the Claremont lawsuit days, and she is a member of our board. Nate, I've already introduced you to Dr. Robert McLaughlin. Bob was he was the Dean of Education at New England College. He was also at the Department of Education and he's chair of the NCCBL board. So that's the team. This is a great team. And I would say 50 to 100 years worth of classroom teaching experience in public schools. We have had at the first few events, people that have said, gee, we wish you had a classroom teacher on the group as well. Okay, so we tried to get an NEA person involved early on, and anybody that knows Irv Richardson is a member of the NEA team. We asked him, and Irv said that he was not able to do it. I've recontacted Irv, who teaches teachers at Southern New Hampshire University, and I've asked him to see if he could find us a teacher so that we could add to the group. So this was the team's charge. The team's charge is to advance competency-based learning utilizing the vision of the State Board of Education that was developed in 2012. And this is, and I'd like you to pay a lot of attention to this because these words matter. So think about, because what I'm going to talk to you about with these regulations, the changes that we're making, they fit to this. To harness community resources and technology to provide a world-class, personalized, student-centered education in a flexible, innovative learning environment that promotes active engagement and maximizes the potential in every individual. So, first I'm going to tell you a little about competency-based learning. Some of you, I mean, most of you probably all know it pretty well, but for some who might not, this is the way that I describe competency-based learning. The old model, the model that, you know, all of us went through as kids, is referred to as the Carnegie model. And that model was developed in 1906 at a conference at Harvard. And the purpose of the conference was to try to figure out a way to pay educators, to pay benefits for college professors. And so they came up with, well, if you're, so what's a full-time professor? Was the conversation, and what they came up with was if you taught for 180 days, then you are considered a full-time professor. We'll give you benefits, and so the K-12 part of the system kind of looked at that and said, okay, when they adopted it as well. So so this old system, this system that was developed in 1906. Was never really designed to, to ensure that kids actually learned. The model was, I'll describe it this way. This is let's call these the constants, okay, and these the variables. The constants were time, 180 days, and you move on by year. And the school year ends, you move to the next grade. And learning happens inside of school. So time and place are the constants. The variable is learning. Kids get A's, B's, C's, D's. But regardless of what they got, as long as they passed the course, that got them a credit and they moved to the next level. So what we're proposing, and what we proposed back in 2005, when the State Board first made the bold statement that it was going to move to a competency-based model. It basically switches these. So the time and place become the variable. Learning becomes the constant. This is what we expect you to know and be able to do. When you can demonstrate this, you need to move, then you should move on. And it shouldn't matter if it takes you this long or this long. This is, what you need to know. Once you've proven that, you should be able to move on. So this is that's obviously a significant change, but these are the rules that have been in place since 2005. When New Hampshire did it, we were the first state in the United States to make this declaration that we were going to move to a competency-based model. Right now, that notion of moving to this model is moving forward in virtually every state in the United States. So what New Hampshire started is now a national movement. So how do we actually get there? We're working on that. So the 2005 regulations started this, and now we're redoing the regulations again, and we are continuing to move it forward. This document was created, the cover is falling off, but this document was created by the Department of Education in 2007. It was designed to reflect the spirit and the intent of the 2005 regulations. When we put our team together and we had them look at, I had extra copies of that because I'm a pack rat, but I had extra copies and I sent them out and had everybody look at it, and I said, what do you think? And That document in 2007 reflected this, and where we got to was probably this. So we had conversations about how come we didn't get as far as what we had planned. How come the system still is in many places, in many senses, reflecting the 1906 design. So what we're trying to do is get us to moving forward with that competency-based model. So the guiding documents we used were the definition of competency-based learning from the Aurora Institute and that 2007 document. Those were the primary documents that we were using. Next, Mike. So I'm going to start getting into the elements of this, and then we can have a conversation about it. I want to, this is what I'd like to emphasize and ask all of you. We've done this 4 times. We've been out, we were at, let's see, Winnacunnet, Keene, Bow, and Oyster River. And so we've gotten, feedback from a lot of folks. And what we have heard from a lot of folks is oftentimes has been some of the angst that the system is feeling, the stresses that the system is feeling, the pressures and the concerns, whether it's education funding or the Department of Education or the legislature. And I will tell you that we can't do anything about that. That is stuff that we just can't do anything about. So here's what we can do. We have the ear of the people that are going to vote to move a set of regulations forward. So what we are trying to do is we've brought the draft forward. Now it's time for us to talk about the draft and to take questions, suggestions, on the direction that the draft is going in. That becomes valuable because then we can take your thoughts on different pieces of the document and we can sit down with the folks who actually vote on the rules and tell them this is what we heard and this is what we recommend. So what we're hoping for, we think that this is a tremendous opportunity to craft a set of regulations that the country will envy and create the best document of this type. Every state has a document like this. And to create the best version of this that we can and to move education forward into the future. So that's what we need from you. Issues about whatever, things that we have no control about, take up time from our ability to get more information from you. So we would appreciate very much any suggestions, any questions, et cetera, built around the document. So here's some of the noteworthy elements of the document. Focus on competency-based learning, we've already talked about that. Anytime learning, anytime, any place, anyhow, any pace, hands-on, personalized, student-centered. This is talking about putting more power in the hands, not all the power, but putting more power in the hands of the kids, with students having the opportunities to be an important piece of crafting their own education. Focus on learning, not time spent in classrooms. This document you'll see as we go forward, there's less time spent in this document about, you have to be in school for this many days and you have to do this. That's not the focus of this document. The focus of this document is learning. Move on when ready. Grade levels replaced by learning levels. So we want kids to move to the next level when they have demonstrated that they have learned what they were supposed to learn. I love pointing people to WMUR on YouTube, Parker Varney School in Manchester. And you will see a piece that Adam, I think it was Adam Sexton, did on on how the Parker Varney School was approaching this. The principal of that school, the superintendent, was so blown away by what she did that she got promoted to assistant superintendent and is now going to be the next superintendent of Lebanon. Next. By the way, on that YouTube piece, you're going to see happy teachers, happy kids, happy parents. So that one of the things, if you remember in the vision of the State Board of Education, that word flexible was in there. That what we're trying to do is put more flexibility and control in the hands of local educators and let them take the general direction of the rules and let them shape how they do it. That's how things like the Parker Varney School, inventions like that come out of the minds of great educators, and we expect more and more of that and want more and more of that. So next, the school year is defined as 165 days or more. This is a non-change. This is a change in wording only, because it was what we did before. You'll see, most of you know that the document now says 990 hours, which was multiplying 5.5 hours a day times 180 days a year. That's how you came up with 990 hours. We thought that this was a signal to everybody that craft your own schedule, because we're not focusing on how much time kids spend in classrooms. Obviously, for elementary schools, there's more of a custodial nature to that, and but ultimately the school district will do what it needs to do. But especially for older kids, the issue is not about time and seats. It's about learning, and we don't care how it happens. So the hours of operation remain the same. It still says 990 hours, but we've put in this 165 days or more because we thought that maybe that would spark some discussion in local districts about, well, what do we want a calendar to look like? How would we like? What about putting, if they're not nailing us down for it has to be this, then could we build in professional development time regular for teachers every week, so there's no more having the concern, oh, we have no time for planning. No, you figure it out yourself, because the document is not going to hold you to. You have to have those kids in class all that time. Definition of instructional time as the time required for schools to offer instruction. This is a non-change too. That we put this in as a clarification, because that was what the spirit was, the intent was in 2005, is that instructional time would be the time that schools offer instruction. Same 990 hours as before, but it doesn't mean that those kids have to be in those seats all that time. They could be learning in other ways. It could be online. They could be learning in real-world environments, all of the above. Learning replaces instruction in the document. Once again, the focus is not on instruction. It doesn't mean that instruction goes away. It just means that that's not where the focus is. The focus is on learning. Next. Proficiency replaces mastery. Proficiency defined as a minimum level of mastery. So it's still about mastery, but we're talking about you move kids on when they are proficient, when they actually really understand. So I'd like to I know grading is an issue in this community. I'd like to think that around the state, and this is just me talking, that the notion of C's and D's goes away. That's what I'd like to think. That to me, it's like, or convince me that those actually represent proficiency. When I talk to kids about this, I tell them that, the old system, the system that we all know, you get an A in addition, subtraction, and multiplication, but you get a D or an F in division, you still pass the course. And, and I say, if we really believe that division is important, why should we let you pass the course? Aren't we cheating you if we let you pass the course and you really don't know division? So, I tell them when you learn to fly an airplane and you get an A in taking off, you get an A in keeping the plane in the air, but you get a D or an F in landing, they don't let you pass the course. So why should school be different? Let's hold kids to higher standards, but we let them do it their way. We give them lots of opportunities to do that. Personalized learning plans for every student, that's what we wanted. It got taken out. I'll tell you, our team wanted it. And the School Administrators Association, they were opposed to it. Opposed to putting it in the document. We weren't happy, but we got what they were saying. They said, if you're going to do personalized learning plans right, this is going to take work, and we really need to think this through. So how about if we agree to work with the Department of Education and discuss how the state might approach personalized learning plans? So it's still alive, it's not going to be in the document, based on recommendations, again, from the School Administrators Association, but we thought we would still talk to you about it. Strengthening the extended learning opportunities, especially community and business involvement. Extended learning opportunities, I'm sure most of you are aware of what ELOs are. They are the learning that takes place oftentimes in non-traditional environments, working with local businesses or whatever. There was a study that was done by the Department of Education a few years ago on extended learning opportunities. They hired a research group called Research for Action out of Philadelphia. You can find the study online. Let me tell you some of the findings of the study. Students with special learning needs were significantly more likely to participate in ELOs. Students who participate in ELOs reflect the diversity of the school's entire population and are more likely to accumulate credits and be on track to graduate. Economically disadvantaged participants were more likely than their peers to be on track to graduate. Previously low-performing students accumulated more credits than their peers who did not take ELOs. Economically disadvantaged students showed increases in their SATs. Economically disadvantaged and academically low-performing students scored higher on their SATs than their non-ELO participating peers and were more likely to enroll in college. These results are amazing. When the Research for Action folks came up to New Hampshire to talk to us about their findings, they were blown away by the results. The lead researcher said, I've been doing this for years, we never get results like this. Never, is the word she used. When they talked to the ELO coordinators, the Elon group, the Extended Learning Opportunity Network, no one was shocked. It was like, what do you expect is going to happen when you give kids the opportunity to own their education, when they feel like they're doing it for themselves? They're not doing it for the teacher. They're doing it for themselves. Amazing things are going to happen. And so this new system, this system of competency-based learning, is not just about what happens inside the walls of the school, but it is, again, anytime, any place, how do you go about harnessing the assets that are around us and use it for the benefit of our schools? And I think that out there sits some amazing opportunities. And all of that stuff needs to be coordinated by professional educators. So so to me, in the end, there's a way to craft this in a way that it becomes, I think, a better job. I was a teacher. I taught for 6 years in the public schools. When I think about, this kind of a system, it gets me excited because I think that it would have been so much fun. I was a science teacher. I live in Durham. What if my job was, instead of teaching 5 days a week all day long, that I teach 3 days a week, and the rest of the time I'm at Lonza Biologic and Fisher Scientific and the Audubon Society and the Air Traffic Control Tower, the Seacoast Science Center, and more, harnessing the science-based assets of my community, matching them with kids that in my school that have interest in various science-based things. And to me, it's exciting. The thought of putting kids in these kinds of environments with real scientists is very exciting. And that is, and the research shows that this works. A high school credit defined as a bundling of related competencies. Now, you know, again, I don't know how things work in schools around the state. But I know what it was like in the old days when I was a teacher, and we used to. Our grading would be, we'd give X% for homework, and X% for class participation, and X% for tests and quizzes, and the final was worth this percent. And what we're saying is, we really don't care about lots of that stuff. It's nice, it's formative, it's important. The important thing is, did this kid learn? And did he or she learn in a way that is true mastery, proficiency, meaning that they can perform using these skills and knowledge in known and unknown situations in the future, and not forget it 2 weeks after the test. Did they really learn? That's where the focus is. And so whatever the competencies are, demonstrate proficiency in the competencies, that's how you get a credit. State graduation competencies, this was a big one. In the document now, as it exists, it says graduation competencies. It's in there now. It doesn't define what that means. So our team thought, why don't we put in a minimum level of what the expectation is for a student to graduate from a New Hampshire high school, and actually state what it is, put it inside the document. We did that in our early draft. It got taken out by the department. Department said, I love the idea, but we don't want to, if we put it in the minimum standards, it becomes somewhat calcified, and it becomes really hard to change it, alter it. So why don't we create a side document, and we'll put it over there. We went to the Innovations Conference with the School Administrators Association. We had a panel. This was back in April of '22. And we talked to them about this notion. The superintendent said, put it in the document. And we said, yeah, but, this is the concern of the department. They said, if you don't put it in the document, people won't pay attention to it. You have to put this in the document, and we need an overall vision of what it means minimally to graduate from a New Hampshire high school. We had a group of 40 to 50 content experts that we met with, mostly teachers, at Laconia Middle School for 2 days. And so we talked to them about this, and we said, look, okay, we've got these, got them in there. You need to look, we're not telling you we nailed them perfectly, and you should just leave everything alone. But when you look at these, you can't look at these aspirationally so that it becomes too hard for too many kids to actually reach it, and therefore can't graduate. And you can't set it so low that it's a joke. So where's that spot, that sweet spot, that we as a state are willing to say, this is what a New Hampshire graduate from one of our high schools knows and is able to do? I would bet anything that there are a number of kids around the state that have been passed on over the years without getting to that minimum level. How many times have you heard so-and-so in high school, he still can't read? and he's graduating from high school. I mean, whose fault is that? To me, it's like, we are doing kids a disservice if we are not holding them to standards that we can't even, we wouldn't even be willing to go out and talk to folks about the performance of a particular student. So we're saying to students, look we want to hold you to a higher standard than before. And I know you think that might be bad news, but it's truly good news. And even better news, we're going to let you do it your way. How do you want to get it done? You don't have to do it in a traditional classroom if you don't want to. If that doesn't work for you, then we'll find another way to get it done, whether that's online or in a real-world environment. So, that's why we wanted the personalized learning plans, and we still want it. But ultimately, we want these kids to have a serious role in defining what their education actually looks like. So that is, I'm not telling you those are the only changes, but those to me are the biggest ones. And now I would welcome and any thoughts and questions on how, about the document, how we make the document better. And as Mike said, the Litchfield folks will come to this mic and other folks will go to that one. So I'm going to open it up. Anybody that wants to say something, please come forward. Oops, here comes somebody. Okay.
So Fred,
yes.
I have 2 kids in the school system right now, and I have.
Introduce yourself so that everybody knows who you are. Sorry.
I'm Leanne Romano, and I live in Litchfield, and I have 2 children that are in the school system here in Litchfield in the high school. I have a child that's on an IEP, and I have a child that is a B student. We hope always A's, but.
Yep.
Why all of a sudden, well, I shouldn't say all of a sudden, since 2012, have we decided that our children need this revamping? Why do we have to reinvent the wheel? Kids are smart. And I'm not seeing that our kids are thriving under this competency-based or core whatever stuff that we're doing. I can't even help. And my kids, they started off great. They went to private school at St. Francis, but, now I put them in the public school. Now we're almost ready to graduate. And I don't understand why we have to change this. And this is something that you are doing nationwide. Who said it? I didn't say it. I'm a parent. I've had kids in the school system for quite a while. And I never said, hey, by the way, Department of Education, can we change everything that we've been doing? Because the wheel isn't working anymore. That's not true. These teachers are awesome. They've taught my kids. I'm sorry, you guys, why do we have to change this? I didn't ask for this. I don't want a document. I want to go back to where we were when we were actually intelligent and we weren't zoofs. Okay, excuse me, a zoof, not being able to do what we need to do on our own. Now mommy and daddy has to hey, did you get your paperwork in? No, we're in a group class. Why are you in a group class? Well, because we're doing things in groups now. Okay, I have one kid that would actually pull down 3 other people instead of doing their work like everybody else. And then I've got another kid that might carry the class. And they all get the same grade because of the other kids or the other kids. And it just makes no sense. Why?
I think what you said is true, that, if they all get the same grade, why? I would totally agree with that.
This is the new system here in the high school.
I can't comment on that because I really don't know. So I can comment.
Isn't this your system of
competency? I can comment on competency-based learning, okay? And that this notion of a group grade, that doesn't sound like a competency-based model to me. A competency-based model is personalized. It's one kid at a time.
Like an IEP.
Like an IEP.
Well, my kid has that, but not my other kid that's on their own.
And when I say like an IEP, not, when we're talking about personalized learning plans, it's not about, and which is not in the document. It got taken out, but I'm hoping that they will.
Well, why do we
something.
need that, though? I don't understand, because that would be, like you said, a lot of work.
I would be happy to tell you about why, okay? And I remember I had a school board member in Conway that basically said the same thing to me. And I said, and I remember saying to him, so you think that, we should just go back to what we're doing, we shouldn't have this, anytime, any place, anyhow, any pace, we shouldn't have this personalized, customized, we shouldn't have this, you like doing it the old way. And he said, yes. And so I said, well, I would say that's fine as long as you're not talking about my kid. Because if you're talking about my kid, I want my kid to have the opportunities that he or she wants to feel joy in their learning on a daily basis, that they are getting up doing the things that they want to learn, and they're putting my kid in a position to better craft his or her learning for the
Freddie,
future.
I get what you're saying. The old way isn't the bad way, okay? My kids were having fun. They were working and doing science projects and digging in gardens, and they were capturing bees and looking at them, all the things that you talked about. These teachers are not stupid. They know how to take the kids out and do something fun. That's what field trips are for. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying go back to boring and just mundane. These teachers have their own plans. They know how to teach. Why does the government, or whatever this document is, have to get involved? And if it's your kid that you want a specific program for, you talk to the teacher. That's what I do.
No,
These teachers know who I am, because I say, you know what? My kid had a little bit of a hard time with that project, and I didn't understand it. What's this rubric? What's going on? What are you looking for?
And I hear you, and I will tell you that a lot of what we're doing is to be a listening session. So we'll take the information. I guarantee Nate has been writing comments down from what you're saying, and that we will bring it back.
I don't think that the parents know what this is. Look how many people are here. That's not a lot. Do you know how many students we have? That's not a lot. They don't know what's going on. And you're going around the country and you're developing this new Department of Education system, or you're asking, or you're trying to develop a program. But I'm saying, leave it alone. Let the teachers teach, but work with the parents. Individually, we have our conferences and we can say, hey, what do you think of this? And they should have that flexibility.
Thank you. Somebody else? Thoughts or questions?
Hi, how are you? My name is Steph Silver. I live in Litchfield. I have 2 kids in the system. I'm also a teacher in Manchester.
Okay.
So I hear a lot of personalized learning plans, individualized, but this district is trying to push to go to a 1 to 4 grade system, which makes everybody the same. So we have 2 very opposing ideas. Every kid is a 1 at the beginning of the school year, which is what they're told now, and they will all become 4s at the end of the school year. They're all the same. Kids are not the same. My 2 own kids are not the same. So I feel like there's 2 very opposing ideas at work here.
I will tell you that I can't speak for the district. So, if you looked at what you are calling this 1 to 4, you might see something similar to that in the Parker Varney video, but I don't think it's exactly what you're thinking about. There was a kid in that video who was a 3rd grader, 3rd or 4th grader, but is working on 6th grade material. So it's the opportunity to advance at your level. So that's what you'll see there. And so, every school district is going to do it differently. So I can't answer specifically to that issue. But that certainly is not the intent. This is about, we are looking at it like, how do we get to a really personalized individual student and optimize the education for that student. So that's ultimately what we're looking for.
I agree. 1 to 4 and project-based learning does not do that.
And you might be right. I just don't know enough about it to be able to tell you.
That's fair.
But thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes.
Elizabeth McDonald, parent of a senior. I have a question as
Yep.
a parent, an educator, and just a citizen. This is the New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Where's Leanne? This is just for the state of New Hampshire. I want to know how we can do, I have a unique perspective because I looped in first and second grade. So I have my first graders one year and my second graders the next year. I had 18 kids and I let them work at their own level. I was 25 years old, piece of cake. 54-year-old Liz McDonald cannot do that because it's a lot of work, different behaviors, IEPs, everybody's in the same room. I don't understand how we can do personalized learning when we're paying a fortune for buses. We can't, I would love if we had a van like Alvern and we all went out and your child went to the music store in Manchester and they looked at all different types of guitars and Mrs. Love got to the science center. We don't have the funding for that type of field trip. I call that different types of learning. I would love that my child, but how can a teacher with 30 kids in her social studies, or his social studies class, do that? I mean, we can get on the Freedom Trail, we're lucky to have that. And I am familiar with Parker Varney because Amy Allen was one of my teachers while I was in one of my grad classes.
Yep.
And she's phenomenal. And Parker Varney was the second lowest school in the state because I lived in those houses underneath Parker Varney and I didn't send my kids there. I spent $5,000 to send them to private school. One person did all this, but she had money thrown at her to get it. And she was able to get it. She's spectacular. She taught business law, she taught special ed law, but we don't have the finances in this town to do all of this. What will the state do for us?
I think that's a great question, and one that we've gotten virtually every place we've gone to is how's the state going to step in and do this? That is clearly a recommendation that we intend to make. So I hear you.
Both sides. I see our dollars and cents and how tight we are in this small little town with no industry. And I also see the other side. And we're lucky we have the CTE center at Alvern that can make our kids for such short money. Yep. But that's my...
And I just want to add that a couple of folks have brought up the notion of personalized learning plans. It's not in the document. We could have left it totally out because the school administrators recommended that we take it out, which we did. So I mean, we can talk about it, but I'm not sure that that's valuable time spent talking about personalized learning plans, talking about a piece. I probably should just take it out of there so we don't even pay attention to it. But I still think it's important, but it's not going to be in the document. Other thoughts or questions from anybody? Anybody? Thoughts or questions on any other aspect of? Thank you.
I am Deborah Hidalgo, and I have a daughter in school.
Okay.
My question is, you're talking about what the minimal amount to graduate, well, what is it?
It's in the document. Those are.
But do we get to see it?
The document's available. It's online. You can see it.
I just figured you'd put it up there so we could read it.
I think that there are 24 statements that are made and about varying aspects of learning. Some of them will be based around language arts, others will be based around math and whatever.
It's expensive though for each individual student. Because if my daughter moves up in her level, but everybody else she's with doesn't, then she'll need something special. And then if she keeps going, what happens to the rest of the people she's with? Or she does everything by herself?
Yeah, no,
That sounds like that she'd be like doing VLAX.
well, and VLAX will probably be a part of it.
Well, she did that, and we're not going to go. I mean, she did, but still, she wants to be socialized.
Sure.
Jeff Venable, 4 kids that have gone to the Litchfield schools. Last one's a junior. I see some logic to the proposal that you don't want to promote kids from one grade to the next before they're ready or before they've learned what they need to learn.
Yeah.
there's some logic to that. We don't want to graduate children who don't have the minimum skills. So I see this based on really focusing on those minimum achievement levels. I question what this does to high achievers.
Great.
And what does this do for medium achievement? How does it motivate our children to do the best that they can?
I'm totally with you. Thank you so much for that question. So, one of the things, it's not likely to be in the document, but I will tell you that we have been working with the School Administrators Association, and we have come to a joint vision for high school. And that, again, this is not part of the document, but that joint vision says that by 2025, virtually every New Hampshire high school student will earn or be on a personalized path to earning a post-secondary or career-related credential. So we are talking about the opportunity in Senate Bill, I think it was Senate Bill or House Bill, I think it was Senate Bill 276, does the same thing in essence, in New Hampshire law, talking about giving kids the opportunity to get career-related credentials, whether it's an associate's degree or a welder's license or whatever, kids pursuing their own path and getting career-related credentials while they're in high school. So I think that there's a number of things that, that we'd like to think that if kids have if they feel like they have ownership of their learning and they can pursue their own path, and the opportunity is there for them to pursue different career paths, then we think that opportunity ought to be made available while they're in high school. The minimum standards may touch around that some, and there are some spots in there that will likely mention the career-related credentials. But so we're absolutely looking at how do we optimize. You saw in that statement, optimizing the education of every individual in the vision. You saw that in the vision. That's how the vision ended, with optimizing the education of every individual student. So that's what we are looking to do. So we are yes, we think we're raising the floor, but I think we're opening up that ceiling. So right now in schools, there's lots of kids. I'm sure, Mike, you have a bunch of kids who are taking college classes and, running START or whatever else. It's, it's been, I think that's been largely a success. We're looking to even have that elevated. So thank you for that question. Other questions?
Hi, I'm
Hello.
Jane Walker,
Hello.
and I have a junior in Litchfield. So I looked online to try to find out some information about this. Did I find the right information? Is it 139 pages of a
Yes.
of a draft? Okay.
Side by side.
So my question is, why wasn't it presented to anyone ahead of time? I just got an alert today from the school saying, oh, there's a forum tonight. No idea what it was about, which is why I think you have very few people here. I think if you're gonna, which I looked, you're going to Goffstown May 30th, you need to be proactive. You need to, if you really want parents' input, which I think you do, but you need to start spreading the word more, saying what it's about. I reached out to a teacher friend who said, hey, do you know anything about this? She's like, no clue, no idea what it is. My other question is, I am all for individual learning, unlike other people. Totally agree. I have a kid that's doing the welding program at CTE. Amazing program, loves it. Guess what? The only reason he goes to school every day and never argues with me is because he's going to that CTE program. So it's the best thing for him.
Absolutely.
Totally different than other kids,
Yep.
and that's fine.
But I wanted it for every kid like that. It might not
Exactly.
necessarily be exactly what you're talking about, but
Yes.
I want kids getting up in the morning, going to school because they love what they're going to be doing.
Absolutely, totally agree. When is this supposed to take effect?
So, thank you for that question. So this, we've handed the draft to the State Board of Education. They need to enter the rulemaking process. They have not done that yet. I am expecting that they will enter rulemaking. I'm going to say, if I had to pick a target date, I would say September. That's what I would guess. That opens the 180-day window. And during that period of time, there can be more listening sessions like this. We've already scheduled a listening session for September.
So if I have a child that's going to graduate 2024,
Yeah, well,
this could affect him come September, is what you're telling me?
no, this September, it will, no, if it is unlikely to go, it is, I would say it's not going to go into effect the next school year.
Okay.
Okay? It may go into, it'll probably go into effect, assuming that the state board passes it, that it still has to go through the process called JALCAR. This is the Joint Legislative Committee on Administrative Rules. And they will have an impact on the document. And so I am guessing, not this September, it might be in effect the September after that.
Okay. And I totally agree. I think every child learns at a different level.
Yep, me too.
I was the kid that our pass system completely failed me.
Yeah,
Okay,
me too.
so totally failed.
Me
So
too.
I'm all for, this is what works for some
Absolutely.
kids. But we still need to be able to allow those kids that are doing the AP classes.
Sure.
We still need to allow them to do that
Absolutely.
in advance.
Absolutely.
So, okay,
No argument.
thank you.
Thank you. You know, and it's like, so, you know, the question was asked about, why do we have to do this? Well, we were one state that did it. We didn't go out to every other state in a campaign to try and make every other state buy into this, but they're buying into it. So it wasn't intentional about starting this movement. Other people found it logical. Other states, their officials, their education leaders found it logical. This is, by the way, much of what has built Southern New Hampshire University. Southern New Hampshire University is a competency-based school. If you check into that, you'll see. There's a TEDx talk by Paul LeBlanc, who is the Southern New Hampshire University president. He talks about the importance of competency-based learning. If anybody is interested in seeing that, yes.
Gal Reynolds, I'm a Litchfield resident.
Hello.
This actually won't impact my child, but I have a
Say
few
that again?
questions. This will not impact my child,
Okay.
but I have a few questions.
Okay.
Number one, is this for public school only, or is this for public school and private school?
It's for public school only.
So private school will not be impacted by this. So students across New Hampshire actually will not be learning at equal levels.
Yeah, I would say they will be, but indirectly, and I'll explain that if you'd like.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so-
will admit full ignorance, because I also found out about this afternoon, and with a full-time
I
job, do not have
apologize.
138 pages that I can read.
Okay.
So many people here probably don't even understand
okay.
what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, I'm also old and cannot read that from back there.
And just another, we sent the communication out. The link to this 138-page document was there last week. It was sent again on Monday. And then the reminder went out. So if you look at the communication that came from me, this was sent out to the community in advance, and it was posted on the Facebook pages also. So I know we're all busy,
I did
but
post the link on the Facebook page, that was my fault.
it was on the school page.
Okay.
It was on the school page.
Not everyone here is on Facebook, and communication we can talk about later.
I can commit to this, that the doc's out there, as Fred has said, it's been introduced to the state board, there's plenty of opportunity to have input on this. So-
I'll come back if you want me to come back and fill the auditorium as far as I'm concerned. But if you want me to come back, I'll gladly. I'll talk to anybody about this.
And so I pulled up the graduation competency,
Okay.
because that's one idea, for example, if folks did want to talk about what that has to say.
Okay.
So can I ask my question before you touch on that? Because I did not read the document, nor did I receive the communication, which that's a whole other thing, nor did I receive the text. My neighbor texted it to me. You state that this is for the state of New Hampshire.
Yes.
Many children in this district are
Many,
not
yes.
going to college in New
Okay.
Hampshire. So how are other higher education institutions going to look at this? Because I have a child that came through this system, and our competency-based transcript was a huge problem. It has been improved. The administration staff has worked really hard to be able to create a profile so that other colleges
Yep.
can look at it, but it was a stumbling block.
Yep.
So this is going to be a stumbling block that won't affect my child, but is going to affect anybody with a freshman or a sophomore who's going to apply for a school that is outside of New Hampshire that does not understand this.
So I doubt that. I doubt very much that it's going to be a problem.
lived it.
And I'll tell you why I doubt it. That certainly for the colleges that are in New Hampshire, they've been dealing with competency-based learning since 2005, and we spoke to the college admissions officers group. And this is back in 2004, 2005. We talked to them about this, and the only real pushback that we got was from Dartmouth at the time, and now I understand that Dartmouth is fine with it. But Dartmouth, to me, didn't have a very good answer. They said, no, we want to see we get this many applications, we want to see their SAT scores, which I think most people think that that's not a very good answer either. But our kids are getting into schools all over the country, and I have not heard that the transcript is a problem. So I don't see it, and right now with the challenges that higher ed is having, I don't see challenges that. This is what the general comment from the admissions officers was, that we trust the schools. If the schools are articulating, however they do it, that this student is competent and worthy of getting into our school, then we will value that. So I don't see it as an issue.
So I work in higher education. I'm not going to say where I work.
Okay.
I disagree.
Okay.
Admissions does not just say, hey, because you think my kid can get in, I trust you. They look at grades, they look at participation, they look at the stack of students that come in. So if a student is applying to a New Hampshire college, and this is spread across New Hampshire, then yes, the translation, the dialect, and the words that are used are going to be understood. Many students from New Hampshire apply to schools, especially, I'm going to say Coastal Carolina. It's like a big thing right now. Coastal Carolina is not going to understand this.
I will tell you that I think that it is not going to be a problem anywhere, that if that transcript articulates the skills of that individual student, the school will understand it. And I don't see it as an issue. I'm not telling you that every single school in the country will adhere to that, but I will tell you that every day there are those who might be saying no are getting fewer and fewer and fewer.
Would our graduating class this year say that?
What?
Would our graduating class this year say that fewer kids received no to the number of schools they applied to versus schools in the years past?
COVID year, if my kid was accepted everywhere, I'm pretty sure I would have been able to go to Harvard.
But what about this year? There were more no's received across higher education this year because from COVID, many kids took a gap year. So the increase in who was applying to colleges, there was an increase, so many schools had to say no. So transcripts that are not easily translatable do move to the bottom of the pile. So it's a concern.
You're using competency-based transcripts here?
We did, we do not anymore. I lived it, I'm telling you, 2 years ago. I lived it. We've all had this conversation. I lived it. We all sat in a community forum. I had an admission officer hand me a transcript and say, I do not understand what this is. I lived it.
I certainly think it shouldn't be hard to interpret.
It wasn't Val.
It shouldn't, I don't know why a competency transcript would be harder. I would think it would be easier to understand.
And then I think my next question, as we're talking about competency-based, most colleges are not fully competency-based. They may have an aspect of that university that is competency-based. So I think we need to be very honest when we are saying to a room full of people that a university is competency-based. They have a program that is competency-based, but that does not mean the entire college is competency-based. I also think the understanding of what a college competency-based program is very important. And yes, competency-based students in higher education do move through at their own rate, meaning they could get a bachelor's degree or a master's degree in under the 4 years. But I think that's important. SNHU as a whole is not a competency-based university, which is a statement that was just made in this room. That is not fact. So I think that's important for everyone to understand. Like, that is not fact. So what other colleges,
So would you say that, I mean, you'd have to agree that the vast majority of students who go through Southern New Hampshire University, that their program is competency-based?
I would disagree with you.
You would, okay. Not that, I might be wrong, but I don't think so.
By huge percentages, I would disagree with you.
I think by a huge percentage the other way, but, but I could be wrong.
Not gonna say where I work. So there are universities all across the United States. What are some other successful competency-based universities that you have spoken to outside of New Hampshire so that you have something to correlate the information that you're putting into this document to prepare these students for the future?
Outside of New Hampshire, I have not spoken to a lot, so.
That's our concern, because a lot of our kids are going to school in New Hampshire, which is a very small, very non-diverse, very socioeconomic advantaged, and then they're going to go out to different schools all across the country, and they could be at a disadvantage
Mike,
from this learning system.
have you seen any hint that from schools around the country that the transcript is a problem?
This goes beyond the transcript. We're talking about who are you talking to outside of New Hampshire to explore what you are proposing to, I think Leanne brought it up, to the New Hampshire State Board. And I'll tell you, this doesn't affect my kid, so I can also sit down. But I'm concerned for the 8th graders coming up into high school. I'm concerned about what my own children have experienced. And if we are only talking to people in New Hampshire about what they are experiencing in New Hampshire, how are we actually setting kids up for success when they graduate and leave New Hampshire?
And here's what I would say, that to the best of my knowledge, the competency train is moving farther down the tracks every single day, and that the resistance becomes less and less every single day. That's my understanding, based on not colleges so much, but watching what's going on with public schools around the country. And that's where my focus has been. So that's my understanding. So I'm not telling you that that's the case. Mike, can you tell again? You were answering. Is it?
So actually, I've asked Val as our guidance director, so she sees this and gets way more feedback. Val, if you could just comment what you've seen from other schools.
Yeah, no, Val Nelson, Director of School Counseling here at Campbell. This is my second year here. We have not heard from our end that transcripts have been difficult to understand. We revamped our school profile this year to reflect our rolling grades and explain what our grading system is more clearly. The old one was a little cumbersome, I'd say, so we've really streamlined it. I will say admissions people are great about reaching out if they do have a question about grades.
Yes.
They're really awesome about being like, hey, what does this count for in your school? If they are not clear on something, they're really great at communicating that. But we don't have a competency transcript. We're still A through F, GPA, rank, all of that. So they still look at all that information, but I have not had one phone call this year of anyone saying your transcript doesn't make sense or we don't know what we're looking at.
This year, though, because you put that in place after a lot of the experiences they had the year before. Because the year before, there were huge problems with the transcript.
Well, there were concerns about rolling grades, and that like when we sent a transcript that because we were grading with rolling grades and that they didn't get a semester credit and then a full year credit, there was some confusion there. But I mean, our profile goes with every single kid that applies to a school. So they know what they're looking at, they know what they're seeing, and if they have questions, they'll call us every time. So, but I haven't got one phone call this year, so I think we're,
You guys worked hard this year after what happened last year. Last year was hard.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
it was coming off a COVID year, but it was hard. It was hard for those applicants.
Yeah.
Nate, did you want to say something?
I'll throw a little bit in. I happen to have some background because my wife is an independent education consultant. She does about 35 to 40 kids a year and has been doing it for 17 years here in New Hampshire. And she sends kids from New Hampshire to all of the colleges in the United States and some overseas. And I asked her about this because I've been involved with Comps Base. What she tells me is that she has worked with colleges, and like you said, they will call her if they have a problem. Because she hasn't worked with some of the colleges because they have problems within the school trying to get them through. So they'll call her. And she says most of the colleges she's finding are accepting them, and they like competency-based transcripts if they're clear. Because it tells them more about what the students can do and how the student fits into their population than just A, B, C, and D. And so she said that to me on a number of occasions, and she said that is the trick. You're starting to see folks move that way. I question her on this every time I come home and ask her. A lot of schools are starting. That's what she's telling me.
But they're starting to. That's the key.
But I will also tell you that you now have about 48 states that have some form of competency-based education in their system. They're starting to transfer. So you're going to see this trend continue moving. It's not going away. It's actually moving towards that.
Yep.
And colleges will find that because that's where the money is.
Exactly.
They're going to follow the money. They're going to get worse.
Exactly.
And I think to Val's point, they've worked on fixing it because it was an issue, but it's also not a transfer question. That was one point of the question. The question is, how are we preparing students who are in a competency-based high school to then go to college that is not competency-based? Because unless every single student here, which is not a lot of us, to be honest, applies to what you advertised as SNU being a competency-based college, are we preparing them? I'll finish my sentence. Are we preparing them to then go sit in a classroom, read a syllabus that is not competency-based, and understand the expectations of them?
I think we are.
I agree with you. Sir, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Nate Lammy. I'm a teacher here in Litchfield. I work in the middle school currently. I do want to share an anecdote. I am a graduate of SNU.
Great.
I graduated in 2016, and I hate to be a contrarian. I did not have a single competency-based class.
I think that the online program is the competency-based program, and the online program is, yes.
And that does make sense because I'm a brick and mortar student.
Yeah, okay. And the online program is where the majority of the student population is, but go ahead, sir.
Yes, and my other question to you is, as a teacher, I know I can't speak for every teacher, but I do struggle, especially with coming back from the COVID years, with what we refer to as initiative fatigue. Every day I come to school, I want to be the best teacher I possibly can. And hearing changes like this, while I do believe very much in, education needs to grow if we're going to solve our problems, I worry a lot about how our teachers are going to learn how to do this stuff. So what sort of resources are you going to have for teachers in order to support the students?
And it is probably the most important question of all, don't you think, Nate? And we have had multiple conversations, and we'll continue to have multiple conversations with the department that they have to step up. That there's just no doubt about it that they have to step up. I think they get that. So we'll find out. But that, I think that is the ultimate question. And the impression that I have from Nate Green, who was my inside the department person, is that they are going to hire that their intent is to hire a person whose job it is to make this, actually make this happen.
Excellent, and that's awesome. I hope so.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the question and appreciate you being a teacher.
Thank you. And I just hope that you give us time to learn too.
Absolutely.
Because if we're going to give these kids time to figure it out, you got to give the teachers.
No, I totally agree. And it's like, and understand, this is not new. This is we put these rules in place in 2005. And so all this is really a continuation of that 2005 effort. It has passed through different administrations, different commissioners, and the baton has been passed successfully from one to the other, that whether it was Democrat or Republican governors, they've all bought into this notion that this is the way education should move. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are getting semi-close to 8 o'clock, but we've got time for another couple of questions if anybody has one. Anybody have any thoughts or questions? Going once?
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
I'll try to be brief. First off, Leanne Romano,
I just want to say, the CTE program is awesome.
Yeah.
My child thrives in that program.
Yep.
That's at Pinkerton. That's not here.
Okay.
So kudos to that program. But my kid that really is a high achiever,
Yeah.
she actually struggles. So I'm wondering, she struggles with whatever classes she gets to take here.
Okay.
Okay? And that class, the class of 2026 or whatever, has been the guinea pigs. Everything keeps changing for them. Like last year, they had the opportunity to have a course that was high school that was ripped out because they're all trying to, fit things in and so on and so forth. That's not what I'm here to talk about. Why is it that people pull their kids out of public schools and put them in private schools?
Okay.
What is it that they're doing that we could do to make better students that are accepted all around the nation in all colleges?
I love the question. I remember when we were first putting this in place, that I had, if I can remember his name, he was I was at a UNH basketball game, and it was halftime, and I was out getting a soda or whatever, and I heard my name called, and I turned around, and it was, I'll think of his name in a minute, but anyway, he was the headmaster of the Learning Skills Academy in Hampton. And he said to me, "Fred, we need to talk." I said, "Okay." He said, "I've seen those new state regulations, and our team, our board, the private school council, has looked at them, and we believe that these regulations give an unfair advantage to the public schools over the private schools." I started to laugh. And I said to him, "That is the first time in the history of the United States that that's ever been said." And I said, "And I totally agree with you." I had another meeting with the headmaster.
I'm gonna laugh now.
Yeah, okay,
Let's
good.
be real now.
All right.
Do you know the private schools that we have around here? And
Yeah.
the unfair advantage is not here.
I heard the same thing, it's the exact same thing. We had to argue with folks. I heard the exact same thing from the headmaster of Portsmouth Christian Academy. He said the same thing. He said, I love what you're doing, but it's going to be challenging for us because some of the reasons that people sent their kids here, public schools can now give those kind of opportunities to their kids. So, it's going to be interesting to see how and this is a journey. So that started in 2005. I'm not looking that we are here at a milestone. All of a sudden we are changing direction. No, this is not really any different than the direction that was started in 2005. Yes.
Fred, can I answer Leanne's question? Sorry, I'll tell you what, when you pay $16,000 for your kids to go to school, your parents are invested. You don't have to educate special ed students in a private school. And there was something else that, you can kick out behavior problems in a private school. That's why I sent my kids to private school when we lived in Manchester. No offense to anyone who lives in Manchester. To me, that's the biggest difference. I
live across the street. I would like all of those opportunities for education right here. Right here. Why don't we do what they're doing?
We can't, kids.
Why not?
We have to educate everybody by law. That's just, I know, it's just,
So you go public.
You just said something
and-
I agreed with. Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
You're taking notes? Let's work on that. Let's work on that, because I got a kid that wants to go to a Florida school, Division I, and she, by
Wow.
hook or crook, if I can get her there, she's getting there. And I'd like to not pay $16,000. I'd like it all to happen right here.
I'm with you.
anybody else before we pack up and go home and watch the Celtics tonight? Anybody else?
Just a quick question. How does this align with or conflict with Common Core?
Common Core? Common Core, I think, is, when Common Core happened, it was interesting. It was an interesting responses around the state, around the country on Common Core. And I remember Manchester saying, we're not going to accept Common Core. We want to do our own Manchester standards. So the Manchester Board of School Committee got together, and when they were finished, it pretty much looked like Common Core with a few other things sprinkled on top of it. To me, the positive thing about Common Core was it said, here's what we think kids should know and be able to do. And it told everybody that. You don't want to do it? Fine. Go make your own. And if you make your own, I can't see folks saying, yeah, but we're going to make it less than that. So I think whether it's there or not, and I don't think it's there right now. But I mean, it did its job. People have set standards that I think are fairly rigorous standards. So the words Common Core have never passed that team that we showed you never passed our lips in the entire process that we've been working on. So from our standpoint, we have nothing to do with it. Did that help? Thank you. Okay, anybody else? One last before we go. Going once, going twice. Mike, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Thank you, Fred. I appreciate it. So first of all, I want to thank all the parents for coming out and for your comments tonight. So the documents are available. We'll continue to make those available. Commentary can be sent back to me, and I will pass that along to Fred. We have recorded this meeting, so this will be available for folks to watch later. And anybody who has commentary, just get that to me, and I've committed to doing a summary document for the team, and so we'll get that sent in. Mary, do you have paper up back? Can you grab a? If anybody wants to be on an email list, you want feedback directly from this, please leave your name with Mary in the back and your email address, and we'll make sure that we are communicating directly with you. It seems as if my communication out to all parents isn't necessarily being received, so I'm going to look into that to try to figure out why that's the case. But if you get on Mary's list, we'll make sure that you are kept in the loop on it. So I want to thank Fred for coming. I mean, he's put a tremendous amount of energy and time into this. I think that should be obvious in listening to his presentation. He's committed to, what are we, yeah.
Thank you so much.
I promised him we'd get him an applause, and I didn't even have to ask Fred.
Oh,
It was organic. It came.
Lucky
That's
me.
awesome.
Thank you.
And so I do appreciate that you and Nate and Gary and other folks are going around listening to people in the state, trying to get this document tweaked. This is session number 5, I believe, Fred, of
This is
about
number
20.
5.
So if you have thoughts, you're welcome to visit another community when they have the forum. On the state DOE website, all of the forums are listed that are being held, and the link is also on that document, so you can access it there. Thank you for coming out. We'll be here if you have any further questions. I'm sure Fred can stay a few minutes before the Celtics start, so thank you.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Much appreciated.
My pleasure.